disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Willard Evans, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the April 2nd, 2026 issue of the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Leading off, we have an article written by Betty Jean Grant. It is getting too expensive to live or do business in Buffalo/New York State. Come on now. How many homeowners and small business owners cannot afford the increase in fees and taxes, property taxes, rental inspection fees, New York State and Buffalo license and inspection, permit fees, and all the other increases in service providers that I have not even named? I endorsed Sean Ryan for mayor of Buffalo, and I voted for him because Buffalo desperately needed a change in regime. After almost 19 years with the same administration, almost everyone felt that the Brown administration had done all that it could do, either to ability or willingness. Even though Chris Scanlon was appointed to fulfill the last 18 months of Brown's last term, to this writer's belief, Chris Scanlon's mayoral administration was just a continuation of what Mayor Byron Brown had in place for the past 18-odd years. As the South District Council member, Buffalo Common Council's president pro tempore, and later as council president, Councilmember Scanlon seemed to be one of Brown's most faithful allies and a guaranteed rubber stamp for whatever Mayor Brown put before the Common Council. Fact is, Councilmember Scanlon was the lead coordinator and motivator behind the successful but potentially unethical stamp/write-in initiative launched by the Brown for Mayor campaign after Byron Brown lost the 2021 Democratic primary for mayor of Buffalo to community organizer and activist India Walton. As a longtime business owner of over 46 years on the west side of Buffalo, the almost 200% increase in the license to operate my small deli store on East Ferry Street has increased from an annual fee of $175 to $500 for the year 2026. On top of this increase, there have been increases in City of Buffalo property taxes, user fees, water and sewer rates. The city is asking for more money from struggling businesses who are servicing the customers who themselves have less to spend because they are working with less or the same amount of money, those who have seen their household budgets shrink because of increased fees and taxes as well. Now, the Buffalo community is being hit with the prospect of having to swallow or cough up a 25% city property tax increase. That is absurd and will be a great hardship to our senior citizen population and the working families with children who are having essentially expenses, gas, electric, daycare bills, and food. The city of Buffalo is a once glorious city that has almost been destroyed by inept and visionless politicians who were bent on accommodating the needs of our out-of-towners instead of making living in the city easier for those who stayed and did not follow the 33 Expressway out of Buffalo. The decision to cut down beautiful, stately trees and replace them with concrete and metal in front of the Humboldt Parkway's homeowners' front yards was not an I Love Buffalo move. The idea to cut down the trees that further divided neighborhoods was a racist act, illustrated environmental racism before we knew what that term meant. I have a message for our new mayor. Please make Buffalo the lead agency on the Restore Humboldt Parkway project. Also, work to keep Buffalo affordable for all, especially for those of us who could have left the city and moved to the suburbs, but made the decision to stay because we love living here so much. Moving on to our next article, most Americans now live at the same address, and this article is written by Ben Jealous. Recently, I drove from my father's birthplace in Biddeford, Maine, to my mother's birthplace in Petersburg, Virginia. 2 different towns, 2 different states, 2 different regions, and yet Oddly, just different ends of the same sad street. Most Americans now live at the same address. We live where there used to be a factory, and when it shut down, what shot up was joblessness, hopelessness, meth, opioids, homicide, and suicide. That is not just the story of one town. It is the story of a wounded nation. Factories were never just factories. They gave whole towns their rhythm. They filled lunch pails and church pews. They paid the mortgage. They kept the corner store open. They let a mother or father look a child in the eye and say, "You can make it here." Then the factory closed. The people did not disappear. They stayed. They stayed by the same schools, the same porches, the same churches, the same graves of the people who raised them. They stayed and watched storefronts empty, tax bases shrink, and hope grow thin. Families are burying their too young dead again and again. Meanwhile, the pundits who get rich dividing the nation keep working overtime. The suffering caused by deindustrialization does not stop at racial lines, state lines, or the old border between North and South. It reaches across most of the lines that people on television and social media work so hard to inflame. This one stokes racial resentment. That one blames immigrants. Another turns rural against urban, white against black, native-born against newcomers. And most Americans suffer for it. Divide and conquer has always been the surest way to blunt the ability of working families to rise together. It keeps our votes divided and cancels one another out. Since NAFTA took effect in 1994, the United States has lost well over 65,000 manufacturing plants and factories. NAFTA was not the only reason. Automation mattered. China mattered. Corporate consolidation mattered. But NAFTA still stands as a warning bell in our history. It reminds us of what happens when we confuse what is good for corporate profits with what is good for the country. Communities lose. The nation suffers. Most Americans now live at the same address. They live in the places the economy left behind. They live where the factory closed, the jobs vanished, and the pain stayed. But there is a road to a better day. We became a great nation because we planned. We looked ahead. We decided what we needed to build, what we needed to make, what kind of work would support families, and what kind of country we wanted to become. Then we trained our people, built our strength, and did the work. We need that spirit again. We need an industrial plan, county by county, state by state, and for the nation as a whole. We need to know what jobs will be needed 10 and 20 years from now, where they should be, and how we will prepare our people to do them. Our schools are still too often preparing young people for an economy that is already gone. They need to do a better job preparing them for the jobs of the future. And as artificial intelligence starts doing more of the work people once thought would always need a person, we need to be ready to rethink the future for every worker and every community. A nation is not a stock chart. A nation is not a quarterly report. A nation is built on belief. Belief in each other and belief in our future. And in America, we believe that if life has knocked you down, you deserve a chance to rise again. Most Americans now live at the same address. We live where there used to be a factory, and when it shut down, what shot up was joblessness, hopelessness, meth, opioids, homicide, and suicide. The question is whether we will keep accepting that as normal, or whether we will choose to love this country, our children, and each other enough to make sure we all rise again. Moving on now, take a look inside those Nordstrom Beauty Cycle containers. What do you see? This article is written by Kristen Bratton. I approached the Nordstrom's Beauty Cycle bin expecting to see returned cosmetic containers. What I saw did not match that expectation. The bin is intended for consumers to dispose of cosmetic containers so they can be recycled through a TerraCycle partnership and upcycled into new products. It did not fulfill that purpose. Instead, the container held general waste. I saw McDonald's cups, tissues, and mixed trash. I saw little to no cosmetic packaging. The material stream did not align with the program's stated goal to take back 100 tons of beauty packaging and divert it from landfills. This connect raises a larger issue. If the input is incorrect, what happens to the output? This question applies not only to cosmetic containers, but to large producing companies across sectors. How much of the claim to recycling is effective, and how much is marketing? On March 6, 2026, I asked the environmental community a direct question through the FIELD, F-I-E-L-D, forum. I wanted to understand how people across disciplines view sustainability claims. I also tested where real professionals are willing to engage. Reddit did not produce strong, practice-based responses. The issue was the audience and structure that I chose. If the goal is applied in-site, you need a space built for people who work in the field, not general discussion threads that do not take matters seriously. So I need to look elsewhere. The responses I received were useful. A graphic designer described a clear trend. Clients now request sustainability branding at a high rate. Companies want to signal environmental responsibility without changing operations or being accountable or transparent. In reality, the bottom line drives decisions and green claims. This strategy leads consumers to believe a company is environmentally conscious when their practices do not support that claim. Why should you care? When landfills expand and materials are not recycled, you face higher taxes and waste fees, rising consumer costs from lost materials and imported resources, and increased exposure to air and water pollution that leads to health problems and higher medical expenses. Many items include mixed materials like plastics, metals, and residual products. These are difficult to process. According to the OECD, only about 9% of plastic waste is recycled globally. In the United States, the EPA reported a plastic recycling rate of 8.7% in 2018. Most cosmetic packaging has low recovery value. If contamination is high, entire batches are sent to landfill or incineration. That's air pollution when burned. You rely on these programs to reduce waste, but without proof, your effort might still end up in a landfill. This is a deceptive outcome. Here is what you can do. Check published recycling data, third-party verification, and clear processing details before trusting any claim. If you find gaps, contact the company, ask direct questions, and ask them to be transparent. A store placing a recycling container confirms participation, not results. To confirm outcomes, you need metrics and verification like certification systems addressing this gap. Third-party standards like B Corp or Forest Stewardship Council require traceability and audits. These systems provide a structure that marketing claims do not. It is very clear that professionals in and outside environmental fields are recognizing these inconsistencies. This awareness influences consumer expectations and internal company pressure. Designers, marketers, and contractors see the disconnect, and my hope is that we all act. Remember this: if we question the claims, brand credibility declines. We need to ask for data, and if there is no data, there is no verification. We can use this technique for any claim or issue. More detailed discussion can be read here, https://www.terraonthebench.com/blog/beautycycle. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Our next article is written by Luxarray. Luxarray is a Buffalo-based author, artist, and owner of Luxarray LLC, Buffalo-based company focused on culture, strategy, and community-centered work. With a background in social science, her writing examines power, land, institutions, and explores liberation through a local lens. Liberation is not a metaphor in Buffalo. Why freedom without land, safety, and institutions keeps failing our city. Buffalo has always understood labor, sacrifice, and survival. What we have not fully confronted is the difference between being declared free and being truly liberated. For many black Buffalonians, freedom arrived on paper. Liberation never arrived at all. We are often told that liberation is behind us, that civil rights laws settled the question, that representation signals progress, that patience will eventually deliver equity. But anyone who has lived on the East Side, watched neighbors pushed out by speculation, or seen generations cycle through prisons and low-wage work knows the truth. Legal freedom is not the same as lived power. In Buffalo, that distinction is not theoretical. It is geographic. It is economic. It is generational. This city was built by laborers who worked the docks, the steel plants, and the grain elevators, many of them black migrants who came north chasing dignity after fleeing Southern terror. They built neighborhoods, churches, businesses, and institutions under hostile conditions. Yet when industry collapsed, what followed was not liberation, but abandonment. Vacant lots multiply. Redlining hardened. Capital fled. And a people were told again that they were already free. Today, as major redevelopment projects move forward and billions flow back into Buffalo, the question is not whether the city is changing, but for whom. Freedom without land is fragile. In Buffalo, land tells the story plainly. Entire neighborhoods were stripped of value by policy, not neglect. Redlining maps from the 20th century align almost perfectly with today's disinvestment. Urban renewal uprooted families without replacing the wealth it destroyed. More recently, development has returned, but too often without the people who endured the hard years. When a community does not own land, it cannot stabilize itself. When it cannot stabilize, every gain is temporary. Liberation requires durable control over space, housing that cannot be extracted, institutions that cannot be priced out, neighborhoods that do not disappear the moment they become valuable to someone else. Buffalo's resurgence will remain incomplete until those who held this city together during its lowest moments are not merely included, but rooted. Prisons are not separate from the economy. Buffalo understands incarceration not as an abstraction, but as a recurring event in family life. Prisons are often discussed as sites of punishment. Less honestly discussed is their role as economic engines that extract labor and remove people from civic life. New York State still permits prison labor under conditions that would be illegal outside a cell. The impact is not only individual, it is communal. When thousands of men and women cycle through confinement, households lose income, children lose parents, neighborhoods lose stability, and political power is diluted. Calling this system corrections does not change its effect. A city cannot claim progress while entire zip codes remain vulnerable to permanent civil death. Liberation requires demarcation, restoration of rights, and reinvestment in people, not cages. Institution building is how communities survive. History shows that oppressed peoples do not wait to be rescued by fairness. They build. In Buffalo, black churches once functioned as banks, schools, and organizing hubs when no alternatives existed. Mutual aid societies helped families survive exclusion. Informal economies filled gaps left by discrimination. These were not acts of separatism, they were acts of survival. Other communities, indigenous, Jewish, immigrant diasporas, have followed similar paths. The lesson is consistent. Liberation follows institution density, not representation, not rhetoric. Institutions, schools, credit unions, land trusts, media platforms, cultural ownership structures. These are how a people convert endurance into continuity. Buffalo does not lack talent or vision. What it lacks is sufficient protection for institutions rooted in communities that have historically been managed rather than empowered. Safety is a precondition for freedom. No one is free if their children are unsafe. In Buffalo, violence is often framed narrowly as crime, divorced from housing instability, economic stress, trauma, and disinvestment. Policing alone cannot produce safety, especially when trust is thin and fear is routine. True safety requires stable housing, accessible mental health care, credible community-based conflict resolution, and equal application of rights, including self-defense. A city that wants liberation must invest in conditions, not just consequences. What liberation would actually look like here? Liberation is not a slogan. It is measurable. In Buffalo, it would look like rising black land ownership and housing stability, community-controlled development instead of displacement, declining incarceration exposure across lifetimes, independent educational and cultural institutions that endure, children growing up without rehearsing fear, wealth that compounds instead of evaporates. When these conditions exist, freedom no longer needs to be debated. A call to build, not beg. Buffalo is at a crossroads. Attention is back. Investment is returning. The question is whether this moment will deepen old patterns or finally break them. Liberation will not arrive by permission. It will be built, deliberately, locally, and collectively. The choice before us is simple, if not easy. Do we want symbolic inclusion in systems that remain extractive? Or do we want durable power rooted in land, institutions, and safety? Buffalo has survived enough. It is time to build what survival alone never guaranteed. Moving over now to the Is That Right column written by Frank Gist. Is Trump the Antichrist? In the first column I wrote after Donald Trump was elected in 2016, I predicted he will be the biblically predicted Antichrist who would usher in the end of times. I believe that now more than ever. Recently, I read an article that said Trump has secretly converted to Judaism, which explains his selling his soul to Israel. Jewish people do not believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ, so doesn't that make him, by definition, an Antichrist? Just saying. The Bible mentions the Antichrist in 1 John and 2 John. An Antichrist is anyone who denies Jesus as the Christ, Messiah, and it says there will be many Antichrists. The first time I heard the term Antichrist was in the 1976 movie The Omen. The film is about an orphaned boy named Damon who is switched at birth and raised by aristocratic parents who were killed mysteriously by an evil unseen dark force in the child. The Omen trilogy parallels the life of a rich, powerful man with a narcissistic personality. Sound familiar? There is a scene in the movie that shows how animals sense the evil in Damon and would attack or flee in his presence. Trump may be the only president in history not to have a pet in the White House. I remember the first year Trump presided over the traditional Thanksgiving presidential turkey pardoned. That turkey nearly flipped out and had to be restrained, which is a sure sign of the beast. The Bible says he will be a man who will gain worldwide controls over buying and selling commerce and gain worldwide authority. There are those who believe the Antichrist can be a group or entity and not just a single human being. Most people are not aware that a large percent of Trump's cabinet and inner circle are Zionist oligarchs with dual citizenship with Israel. They have purchased the American government, and heaven help anyone that calls it out. Trump is on the cusp of plunging the world into nuclear war and destruction because he is the Antichrist, doing what the Antichrist came to do. Our next article carries the headline, ECMC has appointed new president and CEO. The Erie County Medical Center Corporation's, ECMC, Board of Directors has appointed Andrew L. Davis, MBA, as president and CEO of ECMC via unanimous vote. Mr. Davis will succeed Thomas J. Quattrocchi, Jr., Ph.D. Mr. Davis will formally take his position as ECMC's president and CEO on June 15, 2026. Mr. Davis attended Troy University in Alabama, where he earned his BS and MBA accounting degrees. His career began in the early 1900s as a staff accountant, and he rose to senior auditor for a CPA firm in Pensacola, Florida, whose clients included healthcare facilities, nonprofit organizations that received federal funding, and assisted living facilities. Andrew Davis served 6 different healthcare facilities across many financial management capacities. Andrew Davis has more than 20 years of experience in healthcare administration, financial management, and quality care. Mr. Davis has a strong background in healthcare financial and operations management, as well as his knowledge of the complexity of managing hospitals in an ever-changing landscape, which has played a key role in ECMC's commitment to delivering the highest quality care for the residents of Western New York. Mr. Davis joined ECMC in 2016 as Chief Operating Officer after having served in a variety of senior management positions in healthcare organizations in Florida, Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. In 2025, Mr. Davis assumed the position of President and Chief Operating Officer at ECMC. Since moving to Buffalo, Mr. Davis has been instrumental in the continued development of new services for ECMC and Great Lakes Health. During this time, ECMC has achieved over $100 million in capital improvements on its 65-acre health campus. Andrew L. Davis, MBA, said, "I am honored and humbled to be chosen by the ECMC Corporation Board of Directors to become President and CEO at ECMC. Every day I see firsthand the tremendous commitment and compassion ECMC's caregivers provide to our patients, ensuring they receive high-quality health care services. I look forward to working closely with these remarkably talented caregivers, as well as my executive leadership colleagues and our board of directors, to maintain and build on the legacy of excellence that is the hallmark of ECMC." You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And now we'll turn to an article written by Eva M. Doyle entitled "A Very Special Thank You." I would like to thank all the people who came out on Saturday, March 14th, 2026 to celebrate my 80th birthday. I am thankful for the texts, dozens of phone calls, gifts, and Facebook messages that I received. My son, Jesse Doyle, hosted the event with the help of my granddaughter, Somalia Doyle, and her friend, Sierra Radford, decorated the hall. All 3 of my adult children were present, including Sharon Doyle, Jesse Doyle, and Romeo Sharif Doyle. It was a beautiful hall located inside of the Durham Memorial AMEZ Historic Church at 200 East Eagle Street, where Michael Bell is the pastor. I received a very surprising happy birthday message from South Carolina Congressman James Clyburn, along with New York Congressman Tim Kennedy. Bishop Darius Pridgeon also sent a message to wish me happy birthday. I also received happy birthday call from Herb Bellamy, CEO of the Black Achievers. I am thankful for the presence of my first Shiloh family and the Doyles, my Niagara Falls family. The room was full of well-wishers that included poets, storytellers, including my history partner Karima Amin, and author Baba Eng, and Sharon Holly, and a very special poem from Allie Freeman, who always writes beautiful poetry. Alnisa from the Challenger also attended, and local officials also included Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan, Comptroller Barbara Miller Williams, and a host of family and friends. Ellicott District Council member Leah Halton Pope was there. Former Mayor Byron Brown was also in attendance, including Reverend James Lewis. Special thanks to former Erie County Legislator Betty Jean Grant, who was also present. I received proclamations from city and state officials, which included Erie County Legislator Taisha St. Jean Tard and Majority Leader from the New York State Assembly, Crystal Peoples Stokes. It was a high-spirited celebration with the sounds of African drums and dancers led by master drummer Raz Jomo. Filmmaker Sandy White, who is producing a documentary of my life and work, was there filming for the film called Relentless, which will be shown in the near future. The title Relentless highlights my relentless work teaching African American history for close to 50 years. Special thanks to the Criterion newspaper, Jill Gist, and Frank Merriweather and Khadija Merriweather for covering the celebration. It was held in the community center located at Durham Memorial AMEZ Church at 200 East Eagle Street. It was a beautiful hall. The pastor is Michael Bell. I enjoyed meeting the pastor. Our next headline is Mayor Ryan issues executive order declaring a 60-day demolition moratorium. Mayor Sean Ryan today issued an executive order establishing a 60-day moratorium on the issuance of certain demolition permits in the city of Buffalo, effective immediately and lasting until May 18th. During the moratorium, no new permits will be issued for the demolition of principal structures. However, the order includes a clear and necessary exception to protect public safety and allow ongoing development activity to continue. Emergency demolitions will still be permitted when a building poses an immediate threat to life, health, or safety, as certified by city officials or ordered by Housing Court. The city will also continue to allow removal of accessory structures or interior elements and demolitions previously approved as part of a city planning board mayor site plan approval, typically associated with larger development projects. For decades, demolition has been the city's primary response to blight, often at significant cost to taxpayers and at the expense of our housing supply, Mayor Sean Ryan said. At a time when we need more housing and construction costs are rising, that approach doesn't meet the moment. This demolition pause gives us the opportunity to take a more strategic look at our policies, ensure we're using the right tools to preserve housing where it makes sense, and align our approach with Buffalo's current and future needs. Over the past 5 years, the city of Buffalo has demolished more than 300 residential structures and multiple commercial buildings at a total cost of nearly $10 million. While property owners are legally responsible for these costs, the city has recovered only a fraction of the total amount, which has left taxpayers with the burden of paying for these demolitions. The loss of existing structures has contributed to a shrinking housing supply, increased pressure on rents, and long-term impacts on neighborhood stability and historic character. The neighborhoods throughout Buffalo provide some of the most comprehensive and intact historic fabric of our community and have the largest lasting effect on community history and character, said Gwen Howard, chairperson of the City of Buffalo Preservation Board. Carefully considering and reducing demolitions of residential structures throughout Buffalo will stem neighborhood decay and provide greater opportunity for properties to change hands to homebuyers that can invest with their sweat equity. Historic preservation tax credits are one simple tool to increase the sweat with real hard capital for simple, manageable projects that will have huge impacts across the city. The City of Buffalo Preservation Board is ready to work with property owners to maximize these financial resources and stabilize our communities. During the 60-day moratorium, the City of Buffalo's Office of Permit and Inspection Services, DPIS, and the Office of Strategic Planning, OSP, will conduct a comprehensive review of existing demolition policies. This review will evaluate current permitting practices, cost recovery mechanisms, opportunities to strengthen preservation tools within the existing framework. For far too long, we've treated demolition as the default, tearing buildings down without a second look, without a real review, and without asking what we're losing, said Bernice Rattle, Executive Director of Preservation Buffalo Niagara. A moratorium gives us the space to pause, evaluate, and make smarter decisions. Preservation Buffalo Niagara is ready to help assess these buildings, identify opportunities, and ensure we're not demolishing assets that could anchor revitalization. Don't forget that occupied buildings pay property taxes, give us housing options we need, and support local jobs. Vacant lots do not. In addition, the City of Buffalo will develop a demolition diversion program aimed at prioritizing the stabilization of at-risk buildings rather than demolition. The program will focus on using legal tools such as receivership and abandonment to transfer control of distressed properties to responsible entities committed to making repairs. The city will also establish partnerships with nonprofit housing organizations to pursue grant-funded improvements when property owners are unable or unwilling to make necessary fixes, and explore stronger enforcement strategies to prevent demolition by neglect and ensure compliance with maintenance obligations. The administration will further evaluate options to recover demolition-related costs, including the potential use of liens, tax enforcement mechanisms, and other remedies authorized under state law. City departments will immediately begin updating internal procedures and training staff to implement and enforce the executive order. We'll turn now to the Eye on History column written by Eva M. Doyle, Lost History, Forgotten History. African American history can disappear if we are not careful. Several years ago, I found a book that was about to be thrown away. The title of it is The Story of the Negro Retold, written by Dr. Carter G. Woodson and Charles H. Wesley. It is sad that some people place so little value on history. This is a valuable book, and it presents some interesting history about African Americans. The original copyright date of the book is 1935, and it begins with facts about Africa and the slave trade. Other chapters include the American Revolution and the Negro, contributions of blacks in the Civil War, and achievements in science, education, literature, arts, and religion. The authors note that it is important to do research because most of the information about African history comes from missionaries, travelers, and others who may not be reliable sources. Research is required to reveal the true facts of history, which requires much energy and patience and often takes a great deal of time. The research also often takes the individual to ancient books, old newspapers, and magazines. Visits to museums and libraries are necessary. The researcher must take copious notes. The major goal should be always to find the truth of history. The last chapter of this book includes the following statement. History is the witness of the times, the torch of truth, the life of memory, the teacher of life, and the messenger of antiquity. It is the depository of great actions. The authors also note that in ancient days, men had less racial hatred than we find today. The earliest historians recorded the achievements of all nations, regardless of race or color. As kingdoms and empires developed around powerful dynasties, they became entrenched with bias and prejudice toward people of color. I have discovered another book on African American history that I did not know about. It was surprising because William Wells Brown was the author. Brown was a well-known abolitionist who lived in Buffalo at the site of the first Shiloh Baptist Church on Pine Street. He worked on the steamers along the Erie Canal and was responsible for helping fugitive slaves to freedom. He was also known as being the first novelist in America. However, he was a historian who recorded a great deal of black history. He wrote a book about the contributions of blacks in the American Revolution. This columnist can testify to many of the ideas expressed in these books. It is unfortunate that much of the information included in them will not be available to many people. Lost books become lost history. Another book I was able to rescue was entitled Before the Mayflower, A History of the Negro in America, 1619 to 1962. It was written by the esteemed historian Dr. Lerone Bennett, Jr. Despite researching history for more than 46 years, this columnist continues to discover new material about African Americans. African American history is vast and never-ending, and because of this, my motto has always been that learning is a lifelong process. And we'll continue with another article from Eva Doyle's Eye on History column. Mary Church Terrell, daughter of slaves, civil rights leader. Mary Eliza Church Terrell was born on September 13, 1863, in Memphis, Tennessee, to Robert and Louisa Church, both former slaves. Her parents were not freed until the end of the Civil War. The Reconstruction era gave them an opportunity to start a business. They became successful and leaders in the struggling black middle class in Memphis. Her father bought and sold land and became one of the wealthiest men in the city. Robert Church wanted the best for his daughter, so he sent her to Oberlin College in Ohio, where she earned a bachelor's degree in 1884. When she left Oberlin, she went to work as a teacher at Wilberforce. This school was established to help train young black students. Mary was not satisfied with her position. She wanted to achieve more in life, so she returned to Oberlin to complete a master's degree. Her life took a new turn when she traveled to Europe in 1888 to learn about cultures. She found more liberal views about race during her travels. When she returned to the United States in 1890, she married Robert Terrell, whom she had met in Washington. However, there was one event that changed her direction in life for the next 60 years. It was the lynching of a black man named Tom Moss on March 9, 1892. Tom Moss was one of Mary's best friends. They grew up as children together, attending parties and having fun. She recalled that Tom was a letter carrier and always saving his money. He continued to save money as an adult. Tom Moss, Calvin McDowell, and William Henry put their money together and went into business. They called their store the People's Grocery. Blacks stopped shopping with the white-owned store across the street. They began to patronize the black business. The white store owner became angry and organized a group of men to break up the black store, and a fight followed. The police were called, and the black men were arrested. The next night, a mob stormed the jail. The men were taken from the jail and lynched. The scene after the lynching was horrific. Tom was shot in the neck, and McDowell was butchered and dismembered. When news of this lynching reached Mary, she was shaken to the core. Tom Moss had been a lifelong friend. She could not stand by quietly after such a brutal murder. Mary Terrell contacted the one person that she knew would stand with her. She reached out to Frederick Douglass. At the time, Frederick Douglass was the most important African American living. He was known for his fight for the freedom of African Americans. Together, they demanded a meeting with President Benjamin Harrison, which he agreed to the meeting. he listened to as they argued for a law in the United States against lynching. However, President Harrison did not make any public statement against lynching. Mary made the decision after this meeting to take another course in her life. She was determined to organize black women across the country and to fight racism. For the next 60 years, she carried out her plan to reach every segment of American society in her fight for equality and justice for blacks. The book, entitled Unceasing Militant, written by Allison M. Parker, describes Mary Church Terrell's life of activism. She became the first president of the National Association of Colored Women and a founding member of the NAACP, and she continued to work with Frederick Douglass. She also worked with the great anti-lynching crusader Ida B. Wells. Her friends included Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, the great scholar and civil rights advocate. She became one of the most prominent activists of her time. When 3 companies of African American soldiers were dismissed in 1906 from the U.S. Army after a racial incident in Brownsville, Texas, without due process, Terrell spoke out publicly against their unfair treatment. She even demanded a meeting with the Secretary of War, William Howard Taft. The soldiers were given a hearing, but they were still dismissed from the Army. Mary Church Terrell and Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall were presented with the Vanguard Award from the African American Women's Community Service Organization in New York City. They were recognized for their work in civil rights. Terrell died on July 24, 1954, at the age of 91. The great actor Paul Robeson, in his eulogy, described Mary Church Terrell in the following way: "She struggled for the full citizenship of her people. She leaves us a rich heritage and a noble example to be followed by us all until full and final victory." You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo Criterion on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Our next article carries the headline, "Colored Girls Bike 2 Launches Spring Kickoff, Bike Shop Fundraiser and Community Cookout in Buffalo." Colored Girls Bike 2, or CGBT, invites the community to celebrate the launch of its bike shop and mobility bank with a spring kickoff bike shop fundraiser and community cookout happening April 3rd from 4 to 7 p.m. and April 4th from 2 to 5 p.m. at 1353 Jefferson Avenue, Buffalo, New York, 14208. This 2-day event aims to engage the community, raise funds, and showcase the transformative work CGBT is doing to expand access to mobility and transportation in Buffalo. Attendees can browse and purchase bikes, bike parts, and accessories on a sliding scale basis, enter raffles for free bikes, and enjoy a community cookout featuring food for all. Our spring kickoff is about more than fundraising, says Jolanda Hill, founder of CGBT. It's about building community, creating access to essential transportation, and sharing our vision of mobility justice. Bikes aren't just recreation. They're tools for independence, freedom, and opportunity. Event highlights include sliding scale bike sale, bikes and accessories available from $20 to $100. Bike raffle, win one of 4 bikes for a small donation. Community cookout, free barbecue and vegan options for all attendees. Bike shop and mobility bank tours. See CGBT's programming in action. CGBT presentation. Learn about ongoing programs, sponsorship, opportunities, and ways to support. CGBT aims to raise $2,000 during the event through donations, raffle tickets, and bike sales, while collecting bikes, parts, and other equipment for its shop and mobility bank. The organization also seeks to recruit monthly donors and sponsors to sustain long-term community impact. This family-friendly event offers a unique opportunity for community members, local partners, and supporters to connect with CGBT's mission while enjoying food, music, and the joy of cycling. And once again, this fundraiser is on April the 3rd from 4 to 7 p.m. and April the 4th from 2 to 5 p.m. at 1353 Jefferson Avenue, Buffalo. Next up, Everberry brings Amazonian acai to downtown Buffalo, a taste of the Amazon with a mission to give back. Straight from the heart of the Amazon, Everberry is planning its first ever location in Buffalo, ready to bring a vibrant, healthy culinary experience to the community. Known for crafting acai bowls from the finest Amazonian acai, Everberry promises flavors so bold and fresh you'll be craving them long after the last bite. The new Everberry location will open in the historic Brisbane building, transforming the space that once housed a newspaper stand into a tropical escape in the heart of downtown Buffalo. Guests can look forward to a menu of handcrafted acai bowls, smoothies, and specialty coffees made with care and passion. Everberry is more than just a destination for delicious food. It's a mission-driven business committed to global and local impact. A portion of every bowl sold will support efforts to rebuild and protect the Amazon rainforest, connecting Buffalo directly to the source of its signature ingredient. Our mission is simple, said Clark Thrasher, founder of Everberry. We want to give Buffalo residents an experience that's as unique as it is delicious, while making a positive impact on the world. Everberry is about more than just flavor. It's about community, sustainability, and empowerment. Everberry's launch is a first-of-its-kind experience inviting local residents, health-conscious eaters, and food enthusiasts to enjoy a bowl that makes a global difference while celebrating Buffalo's vibrant community. About Everberry, Everberry brings authentic Amazonian acai straight from the rainforest to the heart of Buffalo. With a commitment to quality, sustainability, and giving back, Everberry is redefining the acai experience, one bowl at a time, while helping rebuild the Amazon rainforest and supporting communities locally and globally. And the grand opening event is scheduled for May the 6th, 2026, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 403 Main Street, Buffalo. That's May 6th, 2026, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., 403 Main Street, Buffalo. Now, moving back to Frank Gist's column, Is That Right? Trumped Up War. Albert Einstein. After years of anticipation, the war with Iran is on and popping now. Israel and America perpetuated a sneak attack on the sovereign state of Iran, formerly Persia, last week, killing their supreme leader and several members of the Iranian leadership. Whether the mainstream media admit it or not, Donald Trump just set off World War III and led straight into an apocalypse. I found it hilarious when days after the first attack, lying Trump flipped the script by pulling a Jedi mind trick on the American people, declaring Iran started the conflict and it will be over in a few weeks. The sad part is there will be low IQ people that will forever believe this war was started by the Persian predators of the Middle East, just as there are still people that believe 9/11 was the reason America attacked Iraq and Afghanistan. As of this writing, it appears Iran is putting up a valiant and effective fight, pummeling Israel with hypersonic missiles, shooting down fighter jets, and killing American soldiers. Some pundits and military brass are suggesting both America and Israel cannot maintain a sustained attack and could be a problem, whereas Iran has been preparing for this war for decades and are in it for the long haul. What worries many pundits and me is the fact Israel will not allow defeat and will survive by any means necessary. If the war goes south for Israel and too much damage is inflicted, there is little doubt that Netanyahu will go nuclear and obliterate the Persian problem in a flash. Netanyahu, in so many words, stated that in his first speech after the war began. Dropping a nuclear bomb would be a quick and inexpensive way to rid the world of Iran forever. It will be justified as Israel's self-preservation of the last resort. They will say if the Iranians won the war, there would have been a new Holocaust on the Jewish people. They will also try and justify it biblically, saying it was God's will kill will kill a million goy in a flash from the heavens. The American media will push that BS narrative down the throats of every American until every good citizen will believe dropping a nuclear bomb was justifiable for Israel. And no one in the world will not lift a finger to even condemn Israel or rescue Iran. Any nuclear nation that has the power to exact justice to Israel will have to get around America, which also would undoubtedly lead to a worldwide Armageddon. Our final article carries the headline, Roswell Park Brings Lung Health Care Initiative to Indigenous Communities. A 3-year grant from Lilly to Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center is bringing rich new lung health resources to indigenous workplaces located across North America. Collaborating with human resources specialists with tribal nations and communities covering many regions of the U.S. and Canada, Roswell Park's Department of Indigenous Cancer Health team will provide lung cancer screening workflow resources, lung wellness education, and patient navigation services for thousands of eligible individuals. This grant launched in 2025 and will contribute to the ongoing work of the Department of Indigenous Cancer Health, which addresses barriers to health care access experienced by many living with indigenous communities. Indigenous communities in the U.S. face disproportionately high cancer burdens, with cancer incidence and mortality among the highest of any racial or ethnic group. Data compiled by the American Cancer Society, ACS, and the American Association of Cancer Research, AACR, show that American Indian and Alaska Native people have the highest cancer incidence and mortality of any racial or ethnic group for several cancer types, including lung cancer. Our program is all about education for the people, and it's a way to help both urban and rural communities to build on their existing resources and strengths, said Rodney Herring, Ph.D., MSW, Chair of the Department of Indigenous Cancer Health at Roswell Park, and a citizen of the Seneca Nation Beaver Clan. We focus a lot on the importance of screening and early detection of lung cancer or lung disease, but this is a holistic program that brings in many aspects of self-health and health for future generations. Lilly's investment makes it possible for us to expand this work across indigenous communities in the U.S. and Canada and meet people where they live and work, says Candace Johnson, Ph.D., President, CEO, and M&T Bank Presidential Chair in Leadership at Roswell Park. With their support, we're able to strengthen existing community resources and create sustainable pathways to lung health for current and future generations. This grant will make a transformative impact on Native communities by supporting the incredible work of Dr. Rodney Herring and his colleagues at Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center, said Seneca Nation President J. Conrad Seneca. Developing a healthier, stronger future for our people and our future generations starts with education and access. If we are going to break the cycle of elevated rates of disease, like cancer, plaguing Native communities, we need strong, committed partners like Roswell Park, who will work with us to understand our history and culture and incorporate them into high-impact programming to address the barriers to care that Native communities are forced to navigate. Partner communities within tribal nations in the Northeast, Midwest, and South Central U.S., the Pacific Islands, and parts of Canada will be part of this initiative, with employers and governmental entities integrating provided resources into their own services for employees. The educational modules will also be offered to some Roswell Park team members through existing employee affinity groups. A cancer diagnosis brings fear and questions, says Seneca Nation Counselor Todd Gates, who was diagnosed with cancer in 2021. It is critical, especially in Native communities where cancer rates are exceptionally high, that we have access to screening, information, resources, and treatment like those provided by Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center. The work that Roswell's Department of Indigenous Cancer Health does here in Western New York and across Indian country is meaningful in helping Native people and communities be strong, active advocates for their personal care. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the April 2nd.
Hello, this is Mark Grier. And for the next hour, I'll be reading from the April 2nd,